Welcome to economic classes number 3. I am Basuvaraj sir. In the last class we were discussing about introduction to microeconomics and we have discussed so many of different concepts in the same chapter. In the last class we just gone through with different types of economic systems, that is socialist economy, capital economy and mixed economy. So these all are the different economic systems we have gone through with very clearly in the last class, and we also gone through with some of other concepts like positive economics, normative economics and the differentiation between both of these. In today's class we are directly going through with the inductive method and deductive method and some of other different concepts. So what are these two methods that we have in economics? Usually inductive method and deductive methods which are related to deriving the conclusions. If a conclusion which is going to derive from an individual as a universe as a whole, that is called inductive method. Take an example here. If I say that let us have a class today, and by the words of mine if you listen and you attend my classes, and that is called inductive method. How it is inductive method? As an individual, as you whole, you are accepting the decision, the conclusion that what I said to you. From an individual, you people, you are accepting as a whole, that is called inductive method. In other words, we also call deriving the conclusions from particular to as a whole universe, as a whole universe. Okay, so this is how deriving the conclusion, as already given in by the example. In the same way, deductive method, it is opposite to inductive method. What I said in inductive method, deriving the conclusion from individual to universe or as a whole. But here in deductive method, what we are going to say? Deriving the conclusions as a whole to an individual. From you people, that what you all are there. From you and for me, whatever you say, if I listen as a whole to an individual or particular, then we are going to call it as a deductive method. Say the same, if you say, sir, we don't want class today, if I listen from you as a whole to me as an individual, then it is called, I have taken a decision, we all have taken a decision, that is as a whole to an individual or as a whole to as a particular, that is called deductive method. So one more time, I just recall these two. Inductive method is deriving the conclusion from an individual to universe, whereas deductive method is deriving the conclusions as a whole or as an universe to the particular or an individual. Here some of the profounders, some of the developers of these two methods are here. So that is Frederick, List, Rocher, Hild and Brand. The same way, in case of that is what deductive method, James Keynes and Alfred Marshall and some of other different economists have propounded these two different techniques. I hope you have got this. Okay, so let us go for the next one, that is PPS or production possibility set. What is this production possibility set? As from the beginning of this class we are saying, right, we are in a scarcity. Whatever resources which are available to us, we have to go for effective utilization of those resources. So here production possibility set, which tells us that how the resources are effectively utilized within the given amount of technology. So whatever we are going at present situation, we have to use at least a minimum technology. Okay, so production possibility set, which explains or which defines where the different goods and services are going to produced effective way by the use of technology and the availability of the resources, and that is how it is called production possibility set. The production possibility set we can also understand with the help of diagram here. So this is the diagram where you can see here. So OX axis which explains, OX axis which consists of wheat, and whereas OY axis which consists of cotton. Just say that within the availability of resources, take for example we have 1 acre of land. Within 1 acre of land we have to produce wheat or cotton, or both cotton and wheat. Here we have made some of the combinations. Take for example 1 quintal of wheat and 9 quintal of cotton, and the same way 2 quintal of wheat and 7 quintal of cotton, and so on. So like this we are making different combinations of these two goods within the availability of the resources. As I said, the resources which is 1 acre of land. And what is the technology we are using? In the land we may use the tractor or for some of the equipments for the purpose of cultivation and yielding the crops. So here we are yielding, or we are growing the crops of wheat and cotton within the availability of minimum resources, and how we are using them in an effective way by the use of little amount of technology. And if any of the points which come below to this production possibility curve, it is a curve where we are going to say it is a graphical representation of production possibility set. It is also called as transformation curve. Transformation curve, which means the resources what we have that converted into meaningful or useful end final goods and services. So that is what we are going to call it as a transformation curve. So as I was saying, any points which come below to this PPC, production possibility curve, they are not effectively utilized. They are inefficiently utilized. So the points whatever they are going to lie on the same curve which represents all the resources have effectively utilized, and that is how the scarce resources are effectively utilized in order to produce different goods and services. Okay, so this is important from the point of examination for 4 marks, and also some of the questions may ask on this production possibility curve and set. Well, so coming to the last topic of this chapter, that is on the basis of subject matter of economics. On the basis of subject matter of economics, the total economics has divided into two things, two main heads, two broad categories. What are those? Microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics, so we might have heard something which related to micro. Micro, which means small, macro, big. So that is what, to see small things we use microscope, whereas to see big things which are there or which are so far to us in the sky, that is what we use an instrument, that is macroscope. So microeconomics and macroeconomics originally introduced by Professor Ragnar Frisch in the year 1920. So in the year 1920, for the first time, these two words have been introduced by Professor Ragnar Frisch, and he has awarded the Nobel Prize for the first time in the world in the year 1929. See, for the first time in the world, who has got the Nobel Prize for economics is none other than Ragnar Frisch in the year 1929. For the purpose of what? In order to introduce micro and macroeconomics. Okay, so according to him, micro and macro, so these are the two words which have derived from Greek words. Micros, micro, it's a word which has derived from Greek word, that is micro, which means micros in English term, that is small. Macro, macros in English, it is big or huge. So these are the two words which have been introduced by Ragnar Frisch. And after that, these two words have profounded, developed by two more economists, that how we have to remember at this time, that macroeconomics developed by Alfred Marshall, whereas macroeconomics as developed by J.M. Keynes. Micro, Alfred Marshall; macro, J.M. Keynes. Okay, so this is how we are going to say. So coming to the meaning point of view, as already told, microeconomics is a study of small things or individual or particular things. Coming to the examples, so what all we are going to study in microeconomics? We study an individual things. For example, about a producer, about a firm, or about a consumer, about a product, or about any of the things which are different, particularly an individual. So that is what all the things we are going to study in the microeconomics. And macroeconomics, where we study together or wholly. So that is how. So macroeconomics is a study of all the things grouply or together or as a whole. Okay, so this is our macroeconomics. If we differentiate micro and macroeconomics, so how we are going to differentiate? So coming to this, microeconomics is a study of economics by individually or bit by bit or particularly, whereas macroeconomics is a study of economics as a whole. And this is the one first point. Coming to the second point, microeconomics is a narrow scoped. So as I already told, it covers only a small part of as whole universe, whereas macroeconomics, which covers of broad scope. Microeconomics narrow scope, macroeconomics broad scope. This is the second point. Coming to the third point, microeconomics does not give clear picture because it studies of small thing. It doesn't cover of each and everything of which are there in the universe. So it doesn't give clear picture. Whereas coming to the macroeconomics, it gives the clear picture. What gives the clear picture? Macroeconomics gives the clear picture because it studies as a whole economy, so that we get a clear picture of the economy in the macroeconomics. And coming to the next one, that is our in the microeconomics neglects macroeconomics, whereas macroeconomics neglects microeconomics. Why? Because I already told you these may be interdependent one another. Micro, which studies small, it doesn't study as a whole, so it neglects macro. Macro, it studies as a whole, it doesn't study small, so it neglects micro. So these two one another, they are going to neglect. This is also one of the points. So coming to the examples point of view, so as already mentioned, the example for microeconomics, individual study, individual consumer, individual producer, individual product, individual firm, etc, etc, etc. Okay, so coming to the macroeconomical examples, aggregate total, aggregate output, aggregate savings, aggregate unemployment, aggregate employment, aggregate GDP, aggregate growth. So total as a whole we are going to take into consideration in the macroeconomics. So microeconomics is also called as price theory. These kind of questions may be asked again in the competitive exams. Microeconomics is called as dash. So it is called as what? Price theory. Whereas macroeconomics is called as income theory. Micro price theory, macro income theory. And coming to the next one, microeconomics is also called as bottom up approach. Bottom up approach, whereas macroeconomics is called as top bottom approach. And the last point in this, that as I already told you, the developer of this microeconomics is Alfred Marshall, whereas the developer of this particular macroeconomics is J.M. Keynes. So like that we will study economics in detail with the introduction till to the conclusion of one chapter after one chapter. So in this first chapter we have just gone through with the introduction of microeconomics and some of the introduction topics which are there in this first chapter. That all we have understood very clearly, I hope so. So in the next class we go through with the second chapter. Thank you.